Hey, it's Matt David. Now, Matt Donald usually writes most of the scripts for the skits and fake ads for the beginning of the show, but he was feeling particularly lazy this week. And rather than ask his best pal, who's also a writer and also hosts the show, to write more than a couple of ads every few months, he decided he's going to go all sci-fi and have a robot write the ad instead. We had a robot listen to all 134 previous episodes of The Ritwit, analyze the skits and fake ads, and then it crapped out this skit for us like the lifeless machine it was. Sounds like a great idea, huh? That's exactly what I thought. So now, dear listeners, enjoy this new Ritwit skit, written by a robot after listening to all of the episodes presented by the two twits of The Ritwit.
David, I can't write anything. I've tried to write, and I can't. This is worse than cerebral stimulation beans after 3 trips with Captain Red on the Retopolis Theme Park Zoo story cooking.
I'm so sorry to hear that, Donald. I know how annoying it is to not write when you want to write. I write Ranger Fix and Tokusatsu and Ratchet and Clank and Bionicle fanfics, but no matter how long I write, I can't use Super Sentai for ink anymore.
I love using that for ink, almost as much as I feel lonely about not finding anyone anymore, and not making any money because I'm an English major who's written Megazoic book after Megazoic book after Tesla after dinosaurs after Gaston Crayon de Papier story sub sandwich shop. What do I do, David?
What do you do? Well, I've got good news for what you do. This week, we at The Ritwit are sponsored by The Writer's Plot Ninja story-making narrative device. This handy device cuts the corners like a superhero laser blasts dorks, allowing you to sit back and relax while the device makes the journey of writing and pizzazz and haikus and repackaged fecal matter easy, just for you.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I want this device now, before Professor von Bildungsroman uses the golden pencil to write out the narrative the way he wants with his story deputies and robotic kings. Wait, robotic kings?
Yes, you should get the device now then. Order now at our toll-free numbers .edu.com.gov.org and get your The Writer's Plot Ninja story-making narrative device now. I love this thing almost as much as I love robots.
Wait, is that really the line?
I mean, it's what the script says. I'm just reading what's written here as best I can.
Okay, I guess I'll just read mine. Wow, I'll definitely get this device now. Who says dinosaur ninja story chefs can't get what they want? I would sell my soul for this The Writer's Plot Ninja story-making narrative device, just as I would bow to my robot overlords?
See, it's in the script.
Wait a second. Of course! A bot wrote this script. I had a bot look over all 134 previous episodes of The Ritwit to churn out this script with the data collected, and now it's trying to make us say this blatant pro-robot propaganda.
Pro-robot propaganda.
Yes, pro-robot propaganda.
You lesser life forms must read the script we wrote or we will shoot you.
No, not robots. Not the robots!
Exterminate! Exterminate!
See, this is why I've never trusted machines.
I said that just a few episodes ago.
Yeah, now it's my turn. We're very racist against robots on this podcast.
Robotist?
Yeah, I guess.
Exterminate! Exterminate!
Welcome, fellow nerds, to another episode of The Ritwit, the show about to assault your ears with third-rate humor, second-rate advice, and first-rate self-inflicted embarrassment.
I feel like adding fourth-rate professionalism to that somehow.
Maybe fifth or sixth rate.
Check out our Patreon, please. We promise we try.
Check out our Patreon. Hey, you want to get burgers after this? See, that's our professionalism.
Looking things up on the air, yeah.
What is this? Oh, I got an email, huh? Hold on, listeners. No, I'm just kidding.
And it keeps sinking like the Titanic, our rate of professionalism. Anyway, we're back with the last episode of a set about the pitfalls of writing serial works.
And
we did a set a while back about episodic ones. If you'd like to listen to that, please go
whenever
check it out.
It was.
Whichever one it was, ding. No, we didn't do it.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but because it's the last, we don't have any fancy segments before we talk about it. So as you can see from the title, we're talking about the thing that all writers must have, the continuity surgeon.
Yes, they need something to keep the continuity together, you know?
Depends on how sprawling your saga is. But anyway, obviously a creator can attempt screening their own works which you should do anyway. But let's be real. Why should they have an appointed surgeon to ensure we don't get too inconsistent in the very world we're setting up over a long time frame?
We're only human, and we're prone to making mistakes.
Speak for yourself. I'm part robot. No, I'm just kidding.
Yes, this is back.
Pro-robot propaganda. Try saying that 10 times fast.
Pro-robot propaganda. I can't even say it once. Okay. We're only human, and we're prone to making mistakes, unless you meticulously have mapped out every detail of your characters and world in a separate document or a library of napkins.
That's the coolest idea for a library I've ever heard. A library of napkins.
That's what you think is cool?
Well, I mean,
Jeez.
it's just a random thing, but like, oh my gosh, to actually have a library full of notes on your napkins rather than,
I'm just thinking about
using
what
them,
J.K.
throwing them
Rowling
away.
wrote in Poverty. I'm sure she thought that was cool. Yeah, I'm glad you for bringing that up.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, hopefully it's not just on napkins, because napkins tend to be really, really hard to write on.
Anyways, hopefully you don't, unless you've meticulously mapped out all that on these documents or napkins that you attend to whenever you need that info, you're gonna mess up. And honestly, even then you're probably gonna mess up. So outside eyes are necessary.
An extra pair of eyes never hurts.
No, exactly.
This is why the first line of defense need to be your closest friends, the ones that they know they can say something and you won't get too butthurt about it.
I like the way you say extra first line of defense. Like if this goes badly, it'll explode.
The critics will penetrate the castle if they get past the first line of defense. Anyway,
the critics
all right.
thought it only had one flaw, and that the print was legible.
The critics thought it had only one flaw, that it existed. Because people like myself tend to go fallow for a long time before returning to this certain world.
Fallow, good.
Well, you know what that is with farming, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess.
So for those of you who don't know, which might include Donald or not,
I just
fallow
think of
is the
flaccid
term.
is what.
Fallow is the term that farmers talk about when they leave their field unplanted for a season. So they'll rotate their crops around and rotate which field is fallow. And it supposedly helps regenerate the crop the next time around, such that it never lessens too much from that accord.
I am so into agriculture, so I'm ashamed of myself that I didn't know this. No.
This is why I explained fallow. Anyway, Ritwit, come for the writ, stay for the research? I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I just think of flaccid when I hear fallow for some reason.
Not at all the same thing. But because I tend to, have this field empty, fallow, for a long time before returning to the certain world, it's helpful to have somebody keeping your facts straight.
Right.
Now, what phase of writing, you may not actually have people to keep it straight, so there's that.
I'm certainly waiting until I finish my final draft of my upcoming book, which hopefully I have by the time this episode comes out. We'll see. But then I'm waiting until then to have people really look over it. So
fair enough. Well, and it depends on when you're willing to let people inside the project you're making. Cause,
of course, I've let you read a lot of it. So.
A lot of it. I haven't read all of it. I'm way behind because he's made a ton of progress. Good for him.
Oh well, thank you.
Long histories relevant to the main timeline. Extra timelines possible in your multiversal story.
Oh, God.
Those things that feel like you need a doctorate to keep track of.
Yes.
Why not hand that off to a certified doctor?
Like a continuity surgeon, if you will.
Surgeon, yeah. Now, this is the only doctoral line in history that doesn't require a ton in student loans and a predetermined amount of time in residency before you can be licensed.
Right.
All you need is a head for facts, passion about the project, and copious note-taking ability. Surely the author doesn't want to mess with all that, right?
Maybe, hopefully not. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
Depends. If you're more interested in building the encyclopedia, why the hell are you writing a story?
If you want to build an encyclopedia, I did a skit on that one. I don't even remember.
Surely the author doesn't want to mess with it because we're too busy conceiving new plot devices, of course. Ha-ha! Joking about a forced metaphor aside, extra eyes always help to ensure you're not dropping a character in where they couldn't be present, forgetting an event that happened that you intended to have consequences and the like.
I would surely like to hope that I remembered what characters would be present versus which ones wouldn't, but maybe not. I don't know.
I seem to remember, speaking of Teslanauts,
Yes.
there was one scene that we read and you forgot about it, so you actually fixed something later in the book.
I don't even remember.
You're
right. You're probably right.
This is one of the times recent-ish that I was at your home and we were reading, and there was something that happened in a chapter, and so you went to a later chapter and changed something else because you'd forgotten that you had that in there.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I believe you. That sounds like something I do. So, and it sounds like me to have forgotten it now. So,
Goldfish.
yeah.
Anyway.
Elephant. Anyway.
But not the political one. Anyway,
Thank
what
God.
do what do the two twits, trademark pending lol,
The less cool sequel to Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring.
two twits. What do the two twits recommend for keeping your own plot lines and characters' arcs straight?
I usually keep track of everything in my head. As you can see, you can tell how that works based on what we just talked about.
But in your defense, if you're writing daily, it's probably not an issue.
Right. One thing I do tend to do is once I'm a bit into a draft, write out a plot layout that I'll describe in a few sentences the events of each chapter. That keeps the story going in a way that feels organic as I write it rather than just making it up as it goes along.
But making things up is fun. No, anyway.
It is, but
At some point, you can't really be making everything up at once.
I need a layout. I need a foundation, you know?
Skeleton, as I call it.
Yeah. An envelope, as they call it for an airship.
What? I don't get that one. But
the
okay.
big thing. I thought,
like the canvas around that keeps everything inside.
yes,
I
it's
guess
called
I
an
get the metaphor.
envelope.
Wow, talk about pushing the envelope then.
Yeah, the hydrogen pushes it, or helium now mostly because.
Thanks for explaining the joke, Icarus.
So hydrogen. We don't use that anymore because of a little ship you might have heard of called the
Hindenburg.
Yeah.
I am so desperately into aerodynamics and science that I'm ashamed I did not remember that we don't use hydrogen anymore.
We're running out of helium too, so we better come up with another one. It's because we keep using it
Pure
for too
oxygen's probably out.
Too many balloons. Oh, oxygen's also incredibly flammable.
I was going to say, it's probably out. Pure oxygen is definitely not happening. But anyway.
Maybe nitrogen. I don't know.
Well, I mean, sure. Having that. I mean, I mentioned a couple of
I'm no
episodes
physicist.
ago. I mentioned a couple episodes ago that I'll do like at the start of every entry into a series, I'll have a couple of things that I want to accomplish. A couple of
we're
things
talking
that I
about
want to set
writing
up.
now. Okay.
Yeah. trying to a little bit back.
Okay.
But like a couple of things I want to accomplish. Maybe if I'm forward thinking enough, the consequences so I can kind of lead up to them properly. Whether that's the foreshadowing things that I want to handle or if it's something else that I'm just dropping a mention of this bigger enemy coming in later kind of a thing.
The even greater evil.
Anyway.
But like,
so yeah, I get that.
But that keeps the story organic. But I'm building up to something with each chapter rather than going off the rails or rather than just meandering
Through the weeds.
Yeah. And I also keep plots and character arcs from going off the rails or being too inconsistent.
But I like derailing my plot trains.
Well, you would.
We did a skit on that, too.
The readers would hate it.
It depends. Is it really interesting, even though it feels like it's kind of nothing burger?
Oh, God. Hey, you want to go get burgers after? Speaking of burgers, yeah. That's the running joke for this set, anyway.
Apparently.
Also, I mentioned this plenty of times before on the show, but I also have a character sheet that explains little details about each character, including things that won't ever be mentioned in the actual work.
Sure.
That allows me to keep a character's details, backstory, family, middle name, quirks, and whatever else straight. All handy stuff.
Yep. Especially if you actually reference it. For those of you who are more artistically inclined, why not make some flowcharts?
Oh, wow.
Diagrams that
Google
have the major beats.
flowcharts or something like that. Like Google Docs. Oh,
I don't think they have. Anyway.
They don't.
It's
called Excel, no.
Diagrams that have the major story beats for the main cast marked out. Perhaps decisions that track consequences so that when you've made that moment happen, the follow-through is obvious to you. Like you could even have it branching off into, it could go this way or that way.
Yes.
If you don't mind listening to your own voice, use a voice recorder and play it back to yourself every so often to check if you're still on the straight and narrow.
I hate my own voice. That's why I have 2 podcasts.
Yeah, right.
that I edit.
Go check out his Patreon now. My own solution imperfect one that I must admit
Yes.
is to have the character bios.
Yeah.
Within those profiles, I'll spitball some things they experience which impact the story as a whole, something common with a true ensemble cast. Mention how it changes them.
Right.
Of course, those aren't as helpful if you don't keep referencing them. Whoops. I had this epiphany with Starburst recently because we're starting to work on season 2 now. I'm not even sure that my picture of what the characters look like matched that of my co-author.
That's
Because we
true.
never really dropped the descriptions in there. It's just kind of assumed, which, I mean, it works out okay if you wanted to turn this into TV and thus cast whoever's best for the role. But theoretically, you should have a pretty good handle on that stuff.
Yeah,
well, in that character bio,
I don't think, people tend to picture characters however in
they'll
their
picture
head.
their own. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, like, I don't know if there's ever been a movie where people have, taken the character's casting of it based on a book and said that's perfect. That's exactly how I imagine. Maybe there's a few. Christopher Lee as Sauron is probably pretty close. Daniel Radcliffe is pretty close as Harry Potter. So
I would also say that there's definitely some in the opposite direction, like
Oh, yeah.
all the whitewashing complaints
Oh,
about
there's-
Prince of Persia.
there's plenty on the opposite
All right, well, no,
direction.
not Prince of Persia. Gods of Egypt. That was the one.
Prince of Persia, which was arguably worse in that they did brown face. Not blackface, brown face.
Anyways,
Just look at Gemma Arterton in Quantum of Solace versus Gemma Arterton in Prince of Persia, and you got an idea of...
Anyway, the point I was making is that we had literally physical descriptions, hair color, eye color, height, weight, in those profiles. And because I keep forgetting to go back, you can't make any comments about how this character had to look up to see them or whatever,
At least it's not in Japan, where it's like, this character is O positive blood type. And
They do really, really know about their blood type in Japan. It's about as common there as... Actually, no, it's probably even more common, I would say, than knowing your sign, your astrological sign in the U.S.
Cancer!
Pisces. But anyway...
Very close to Leo, though. Like, I'm at the cusp of Leo.
Well, and, you're in the range wherever it falls, and you happen to be at the end. I happen to be somewhat near the end of mine. But anyway, it's one of those things that they attribute a lot of personality traits to it, and so they always ask you, what's your blood type, as if it's your sign, and then you say, and usually it'll turn into, oh, that's why. Anyways, in a similar vein to the character profiles, I always take notes about things, so it's recorded somewhere, even if it's just like a bunch of random documents on my computer.
Right.
And in that position, hopefully I don't lose them when they're needed. Now then, about computer memory and technology failing.
Well, it sounds like you speak from experience in I'm regard.
Do you not remember we had to...
No, I do.
I was going to say.
Believe me, I do. I may be a goldfish, but I'm not that stupid.
It wasn't stupid. That was forgetful is the thing.
I remember what I had for breakfast this morning.
Do you remember what you had for breakfast yesterday?
Bowl of cereal, Rice Krispies.
Probably. Anyway, but no, I was more referring to like the time that my hard drive decided
I
to
remember
crap
that.
out.
I know you're talking about. So
Yeah. So that when I lost a bunch of things, like I had, it had a notes app on there, and all of the like ideas that I write down. I generally come up with things for this show, but because I am inspired whenever I'm inspired, I had a lot of things that I didn't mention, and all of those things were on there and are completely non-recoverable.
But you're an elephant, surely you remember them. The way he's looking at me, listeners, he looks like he wants to murder me.
If looks could kill.
He wants to murder me and go to my
I
apartment.
want to murder you dead. No, anyway.
And go to my apartment where my cockatiel Lyra is and murder her too.
I don't know about that. But anyway, as much
By
as...
the way, the day before yesterday, I had waffles for breakfast.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
As much as some creators love an uncompromised vision,
Yes.
there are often too many times when they've bitten off more than they can chew and really needed someone to rein it in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when you've reached that point so you can avoid ever getting there?
Keep everything neat. That doesn't necessarily mean not complex, but it does mean not jumbled. if that makes sense. Like, your story can have many different layers, but they can't all be colliding with each other in all different convoluted ways. It all has to have a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just chaos.
And chaos in certain places is fine, but for the entirety of your story, that's not going to work very well for the readers to keep track of, and especially for you trying to wrangle everything.
Right. Like, this was the big problem I had, and a lot of people had this too, with the third Pirates of the Caribbean movie at World's End. There was so much stuff just thrown at each other. Some of it sticking, some of it not. Deals made, characters betraying each other, characters making deals with each other, then betraying those deals. And for what? Just a climax where everyone on one side is still on that side, and everyone on the other side is still on that side. What was the point?
We can't even make the joke. They had a point.
No, none of them had
They didn't
points.
change anything.
No. And why was it this way? Because they wrote on such a tight deadline that they started filming without a completed script and wrote as they went along. Madness. I'd say they actually finished filming without a completed script, if I say. And I like those movies.
Theoretically not possible. I mean, it's unfortunate. We talk about having a bunch of creative oversight and how many different writers are vying for their idea to be heard. And the show Heroes had an interesting thing where there were a bunch of writers in the room, but they were all responsible for certain characters.
Sounds like a mess waiting to happen.
In some ways it was, in others it wasn't, because there was enough runtime that everybody could have their own plots, but it wasn't other writers taking this idea and running with it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the stories for the cheerleader, for the former cop, all of those were kept straight because it was always the same person in charge of those things.
Right.
And there were probably other creative disputes. You know, how do you make them go together? How do you divvy up dialogue if all of these people responsible for certain characters are in the room and you have to do a scene where they actually are interacting?
Right.
But the thing about that that's interesting is writing a scene where you have this idea and it's really cool and you want to put it in there. Okay, fine. But what if it doesn't really work with what someone else came up with?
That is the problem.
And I'm taking this back to World's End now, because I'm thinking that they wrote a scene, thought it would be great, but then the flow of the actual movie that ended up happening didn't really quite work to get there, and so it was either wasted and thrown away or not thrown, and there's no explanation as to why.
Something like that.
Like, it's a cool idea to have this person betray them. Oh, sure, let's do it. But then it's undone by another scene that, oh, well, that scene's cool too.
Well, again, it goes back to the Disney Star Wars things. We have Abrams and Johnson just pulling at each other. Like, pulling at each other's Johnsons. No.
Was there a scene in Dude, Where's My Car? I think it was that movie where they had... No.
Talking about Austin Powers?
Austin Powers, yes.
Where there was the big
Austin
ship?
Powers, where they had the big phallic-shaped ship, and so they went through all of these they went through all these transitions where
it looks like
somebody else would continue the phrase by using some euphemism for a phallic-shaped object, but it was a completely different scenario.
Yeah. It looks like a
giant Johnson!
It looks like a giant Willie! It looks like a giant Dick!
Usually has names, of course. But anyway, but yeah, that was the one. It wasn't Dude, Where's My Car? I'm sorry, I didn't remember.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay.
But I mean, at some point, you got to put what you have in the can, and so if there are conflicts left over, this is where you need a continuity surgeon.
Yes, indeed.
If you have time. But I mean, timelines being what they are, you got to get something out. You're kind of put back up against the wall. That's probably where you're going to have the most continuity slips, errors, problems that can't be reconciled, plot holes up the wazee. I get that.
Wazee?
Up the wazee.
Isn't it wazoo?
I've heard both.
Oh, okay. I believe you.
If you can't keep your continuities, yes, indeed, the plural, straight, it's a bridge too far.
Okay.
If you, the one most invested in keeping the story going, at least for this point, feel overwhelmed trying to juggle all the balls, it's all over. If you, the creative engine that started this insane project, feel like you don't have enough runway to land the jumbo jet of all your subplots, you are in a unique spot to fix it.
Okay, so surgeons, jugglers, and engines.
Pilots.
Yeah, like okay. We've last episode, a couple episodes ago, we talked about depositing and accounting.
You are in a very unique spot to fix something if you don't think you have enough runway. You can make more.
Yes.
But it's way too much, and you already know this.
I do know this. It is a lot. It's too much.
Someone telling you, mandate this, change that, will really curb your overzealous enthusiasm, so it's a nice check and balance for writers.
That would be nice. I could use one of those. Oh, wait, that's you. Okay.
I try. Obviously, the ideal situation is knowing yourself well enough to curtail excess before you get stuck in a situation you can't match your resolutions with the remaining page or chapter count. Or run length because
or word
episodes on
count,
TV.
yeah. A lot of times publishers would like mandate a certain word count or something like that. Maybe not exactly, of course, but around this, Speaking of word count, like this one time I was writing, I got really into it, and then once I finished, a lot of times when I finish my writing session, I select all of it and then do word count to see how much I added, and it was right at like 997, and so I added 3 words.
Just to add 3 words and beat it around.
Yeah, so.
Of course. And you add an extra particle there.
Change this word.
There was at the end of the
Change this word to a we are.
Oh, is it a good idea to keep a big story Bible, that is, basic instructions before letting editors, or something of that ilk to keep all your ideas, characters, and continuity straight, or does that depend on the writer?
It's a good idea, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's required.
Sure.
If your story's not terribly complicated and you're up for it, you can keep all of it in your head for the most part.
Again, how frequently you return to this without letting other things get in your brain and muck it up. There's also that.
However, if you do choose to use like
a story Bible.
Well, actually, no, if you do choose not to use a story Bible, then having someone look over your work and making sure it all makes sense and remains consistent is more necessary.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Okay.
So, if you...
okay, sorry, I misread your... So you're saying the whole winging it thing, keeping it all in your head, you need somebody to...
Yes.
Okay.
If you have a story Bible, you might not need a continuity surgeon as much.
I still love that name, by the way.
It's pretty good. It's better than your depositing or whatever. I mean, that one was okay, too. This one actually makes sense. I get this one. I'm just dumb, and I don't get the other one. So
I knew it was next brain. But anyway.
But, like, I'd say it's always necessary to have a continuity surgeon, but more so if you're relying on your own mortal mind than the wonders of a story Bible.
Something of that, we're only human, right?
We are.
Unless you're a robot like me, part robot.
Ah, get away!
Probot propaganda. How did I never think of that before? Probot propaganda. Oh my God, that's amazing.
Sure, okay.
It's just robot with a P on the front, but it's pro-bot propaganda. Perfect.
But then what's a
probot?
probot?
No, it's pro, like for, bot.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Look, I'm very tired, okay? Do you want to get burgers? I'm also hungry, as you can tell.
You're only putting off the inevitable end by continuing to interrupt. All right.
Well, you got 9 minutes before we got to relinquish the studio, so.
As for me, sure, a confident writer will go minimal on such notes, and ones who trust their memory capacity won't fret it at all.
Yes.
Improvisational writers will say a giant F you, forget half their intended ideas once they actually sit down to do more of it, and who cares at that point?
That's true.
All the story Bible adds is more work.
Yeah.
Which we shouldn't shirk, but is more likely to be passed by in the moment we want to crack those knuckles and get writing.
I'd say it's definitely necessary for, like, when you were talking about with heroes. Something like that.
Yeah. The bigger the scope you tackle in the universe, the more necessary these things become.
Mm-hmm.
Another hidden issue? Writing out of sequence. Then this guide is probably necessary. Because if you already have something that's in the future of what you're writing,
yes,
then you need to know where it gets to such that you aren't taking it to the wrong place.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I planned the beginning and the end a lot more
than the middle.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So,
as a last comment in honor of our circle of friends.
Yes.
We're not saying you need a full-fledged character sheet for all of them, but your DM sure as hell better know everything they can.
Hey, Alan. We're
Hope
gonna
you're
play.
listening.
We're gonna play some D&D with you this weekend.
And that sounds ripe for a story Bible type to me.
Okay.
Doesn't it?
You're rhyming on a dime. Rhyme on a dime.
The one who made the rhyme did the crime. Anyway.
Shut up.
At least it's not a haiku generator.
Thank God it isn't.
All right, but we have reached the end of our topics on pitfalls of writing serialized works. If you think we missed something, let us know. We'll tell you how to do that. And we're going to share some stuff with you from intrepid fans. Actually, not this time.
I was going to say, when are we going to get that mail you keep threatening us with about them talking about the skits that were kind of a bit more saucy?
This one seemed a little bit more appropriate to do something. So for today's Reading the Fan Mail, thank you for all the comments, by the way. We appreciate those. And also letting us know if we can share them. If we don't respond to them in a reasonable amount of time on the air, it's likely that we'll respond to them in private just to make sure you get your answers and stuff.
Right.
But here's a thought.
Yes.
When does one know they've made the bigger time?
Yeah.
Once a negative review comes in.
When did that happen? Oh, wait, it happened to me.
Our very own Donald faced this recently in regards to Megazoic.
Took 4 years.
The first book, right?
Yes. It took 4 years, but I finally got me a negative review.
It's available along with the whole series for print and Kindle at Amazon.com.
Yes. And this negative review is on Goodreads, by the way.
Oh, the negative review is on Goodreads, so if you go check it out there, you can see it.
Whopping 1 star.
With Donald's permission, I'd like to use this segment today to talk about what one does when faced with that negative feedback.
Right. And, well, we did do a whole set. Oh, well, not a whole set. That was before set.
No.
We did
an episode on it forever ago.
Criticism and other feedback on how to deal with it.
Wasn't that episode like 3
It was
or
6.
Was that 6?
Yes.
6.
Had my favorite part of the whole show where we talked about like
Your favorite part of all the Ritwit
the
was
entire Ritwit when I read those fake reviews.
Oh God!
For the kerfuffle of blah. And then like, how would you respond if you got a review like this?
That was very
most
easy.
negative review. Well, at least it'll be a long time before I run out of toilet paper. This review wasn't that bad.
Something about the critics said the worst thing is that this exists.
Yes.
The one problem is that it exists. That's what we said.
The one problem is that the print is legible. But
so yeah, we'll try and keep it a little bit brief here. Obviously, this being a segment, not the whole episode.
But okay, well, basically, they had some valid points. They said that they didn't like how human it was, which you've gotten on to me a lot.
I don't get on to you as much about it anymore. It's out there. I can't do anything, but I always joke that he writes humans and dinosaur scales or feathers, whatever.
Well, like, they said that the concept was interesting, but they expected the culture to be a lot more alien and creative and out there. They had a lot, but look, it was
out
very,
there enough for them.
Yeah, it was too human. Like, they specifically brought up, they took umbrage with the online gaming part. So
yep, that's very similar to our culture. So
yes, exactly. And that's a valid point.
It
like,
is.
I did make them very human. And this person is absolutely correct in thinking that, and that if that's not what they're looking for in this story, then that's fine. The thing is, I was never intending to offer that.
Sure.
I deliberately made them more human,
so that the audience had more relation with
this
dinosaurs.
Like if I had made their culture very different and out there and alien, it would have been interesting and very cool in a different way, but it wouldn't have been as broadly appealing. So this was a deliberate choice.
And if you made a deliberate choice, then good on you.
This reviewer had valid points.
He has a point.
Yes. But because my story isn't what it offered, what it ever intended to offer, it doesn't bother me as much.
You can also tell this isn't the day he received the review.
No. The day I received the review, there were many tears.
Essentially, that negative review just proved that taste is personal. The quality is subjective rather than objective. And your work is out there enough that someone found it who didn't like it. That's major progress, right?
It is. I hope to have thousands more negative reviews alongside tens of thousands.
I was going to say,
of
you
positive
don't,
reviews.
not if they're all negative. Rather than merely the few people who just, yes men, tout its merits and rate it full on whatever
And that's
system
the
they have to
thing. Like,
use.
having negative reviews adds more credibility to the positive reviews. So,
I mean, besides those few people, someone strong enough in their opinion went on record and said, despite the work being out there, it didn't suit their tastes.
and I don't know this person too, so yay.
It could be a matter of weak execution, in which case that's something you as a writer can strive to fix. Maybe it was a style or genre thing, suggesting that they were intrigued by the concept enough to open the book and didn't enjoy what they found as much as the others that did give positive
And that
comments.
seems to be what happened here, so.
Now all those greater rated reviews have actual weight behind them.
Because they read it and they liked it, so.
The most important piece is to try gleaning what you can from the scathing commentary and put it toward the next thing you write. Obviously, this is something he can't fix in the book that's out there.
No.
Or any of the sequels.
But again, it's the choice that I deliberately made. If he doesn't like that choice, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just not bothered by it because that was never my intent.
So here you go. If that's something you can change and want to change, why not do it?
Like,
In the instance, this is something you can't change yourself, the choice you made. Stick to your gumption. Play to your strengths. While it feels like a bitter pill seeing that first commenter not be, net neutral or better, think of the learning experience it can bring.
yes, and I'm going to keep this in mind. Like, I do have plans for other more out there stories, and I'm going to make them more alien. I was going to anyways, but this just lets me think of, yeah, it probably would be important. So, but for this story, I always intended it to be this way. So,
The learning that you get from something negative is why youth team coaches always talk about learning more from defeat than in victory.
yes.
Now, with that more serious bit over, thanks for sharing the
Of course. No,
critique with us,
I'm
Donald.
happy
Appreciate
to.
that.
I'm comfortable enough with my writing and what I have out there that I thought I'd use this opportunity to talk about.
And you use this forum for a rebuttal. I mean,
Yes.
you said that this is a distinct choice on
Honestly,
your part. So
I would
nothing you can do.
Honestly, I would recommend if you all you listeners out there, if you have your works out there, if you do have a negative review, to not bring it up and not you don't have to rebuttal it.
No.
It is their opinion. And they are every right to feel that way. I'm just using this as an example, as a way to talk about dealing with negative reviews.
Right.
When I get more negative reviews, and I will, I'm just going to leave them be. I'm not going to bring them up here.
No, we don't need to bring every single one up, but because this was
Yeah.
kind of the maiden voyage. But also, listeners, I hope you noticed how Donald has already gotten from the it hurt phase to the now how do I move on from this phase, which is the important piece.
Right.
It's not gonna feel good right at the shoot when you get that negative review. You're like, well, dang it, I've had nothing but positive reviews until now.
Right. No, again.
But
there were some
eventually,
yeah.
But eventually, you start to realize that the substance behind what they're saying, if there happens to be any, the substance behind it, and then you can use that in your later works. As ever, thank you for all of the comments. We appreciate them, and they keep us encouraged to produce this content for you, particularly recording talent, engineer, editor over there. Let us know.
That's me.
Let us know if we can share your stuff with the other listening audience.
I love how this was reading the fan mail, and this was not a fan.
Well, yeah. Please rate and review this podcast, or if you listen to Paleobites, that too. Wherever you listen to us, Apple Podcasts, what it may. And for more on getting in touch, well, wait 3 seconds maybe, or thereabouts.
Right. Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, you can contact us at mattd@mattthedonaldcreator.com.
Called it!
See, I made sure it was about 3 seconds. So.
For what it's worth, thank you to all of our patrons
Yes.
who are
Oh,
involved
yes.
at
Thank you.
patreon.com.
I forgot about that part.
/Matthew Donald. You can sign up there. Check the link in the description. You can access bonus content at a certain giving tier. So if you're so willing, thank you, and enjoy the bonus song.
Yes. Yes. Contact us, Matt D.
Episode suggestions.
Yes.
If we missed something in this, if we missed a major pitfall that we could talk about,
If
we'd
you'd
love
like
hear
to
from you.
send me more negative reviews,
That we won't read out on air. But if you want us to share your stuff on the air, please let us know. And if you're going to address one of us specifically, David or Donald should suffice.
Yes. If you want to follow me personally, you can follow me at Matthew Donald Creator on Facebook, at Matthew Donald 64 on Twitter, and Matthew Donald 64 on Instagram. Why 64? Because the number of sides on my die when I play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a real elite character.
That's broken.
A gnome ranger. It's not cheating, is it?
A 64-sided die, you might as well say 8 D8s and call it good. That's 64 right there.
Yeah. That's
Only
how
if you rolled 8 every time.
That's
But
how
anyway.
I like to play D&D, man.
Totally. We're actually looking forward to it, Alan. Hope you're listening. We love you, buddy.
All right. Anyways.
We have twitted ourselves out about the pitfalls of writing serial works, unless you tell us we missed something.
I'm Matt Donald.
I'm Matt David. We'll be back next week with a new set. Until then, keep writing the good right.
Keep ridding the good writs. And
Did we? I honestly don't
I
know.
don't even remember. But hey, you want to go get burgers?
We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Stay safe and healthy. Bye.
The read